Yes, guys, what is up, people, and welcome back for yet another episode of the Off Grid podcast. Very much a pleasure to have you all back. Now, this podcast has officially had that play button pressed over 2,000 times. How sick is that? Just that play button, pop, and then 2,000 times, pop, 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 pop. Super cool. Now, only 89 of you have tapped that follow button. So if you've been here before, you recognise my beautiful voice, and have been following along with me anyways, would you mind just tapping that one tap on the follow button? It helps this podcast so much, and the conversations that you enjoy reach more people. Now, this week's guest is Archie Whitfield. Archie ran to all 20 Premier League stadiums in 25 days in memory of his dad, fundraising for the Brain charity. He's run to all the stadiums in the Scotland League, the Portuguese League, and even around the whole of Lake Como in Italy. So he likes his running. In this conversation, we talk about processing grief through mission and movement over sitting and talking, how to find enjoyment in doing hard things, perspectives on the elitist running culture, the insane training required for back-to-back ultras, and finding purpose in our dreams in the face of cynicism. Archie is a product of strength of character forged through his life experiences, and I hope you enjoy this one. Archie, welcome to the Off Grid podcast, mate.
Thank you very much. Good to be here. I'm very excited.
Pleasure. Yeah, no, same. I'm looking forward to getting into this one because you're clearly an accomplished runner. But for those that don't know, could we start off with the story that led you to all of your running achievements?
So before, in the last sort of 2 or 3 years, before all this, football was always my thing. That was my go-to sport. Sort of played sort of to a decent standard, sort of semi-pro. I wanted to sort of see how far I could take that. But then in December 2023, I lost my dad to a condition called Cushing's disease, which was caused by a brain tumor. And after losing dad, it was a case of, right, I'd love to do something in his memory. He was a massive football fan, massive sports fan. So I've always sort of followed me around with my football and stuff like that, and I was always a big supporter of it all. And so I thought I'd love to do something in memory, raise some money for like a charity related. And that's where sort of the running came in. I've always loved running, and I sort of thought mix it in with some sort of football related thing, and we've sort of on for a winner here. It'd be very fitting. So that's where it all sort of stemmed from. But as I say, running was always a big part of my football, and I always enjoyed doing it just as a bit of a sort of side thing anyway. So yeah, that's where it all sort of stems from, really.
Now, you announced publicly that you were going to run to all 20 of those Premier League stadiums in 25 days, just 2 months after your dad, Dave, passing away. That seems quite soon. What was it that was the driving force in your mind at that time?
I mean, so after dad passed in 2023. I then sort of decided on a couple months after that I was going to do it, but then I didn't do it until the following April. But I think sort of the couple months after, I think it was a case of I'd love to find some routine. I think with it being a big challenge, I thought I'd give it plenty of time sort of ahead. But I think that was the main thing after he passed, was finding routine, getting to some sort of something to aim for, and something that, again, was that was sort of out of my comfort zone. I wasn't sure if I would be able to do it, but to have that, I think, especially when when I was grieving, it was a great way to obviously spend a lot of time sort of alone out running and stuff like that. And I live in North Yorkshire, so it's a very beautiful part of the world. So it was a great way just to get out in nature, sort of process my grief in a lot of ways, and just sort of get back to some routine, which had probably been lacking for a few months prior.
So running for you, this is like obviously far more than just kind of the physical challenge of it all. This is like the motions of going through grieving and losing your dad at that time. What was that actual process for you? Like for people that don't know, what does grieving through running actually do for you? How did it help?
Well, I think just the idea of just getting out and exercising is just one thing. Um, Obviously, it's better than just just staying in the house away from everyone, or just sort of mulling your own like sadness, whatever you want to sort of say. Um, but I think it's just you obviously you spend a lot when you're running, and especially longer distance, but any distance, you're spending that time often alone in your own head. Um, so I found a lot of the time, stuff that you wouldn't have time to think about in everyday life would come up whilst I was running. And it was good to just sort of acknowledge them like feelings and thoughts whilst I was out running in a sort of safe space where again it's sort of I would if you get angry or upset or emotional or whatever, you're out running anyway. So it's straight away a great way to sort of like a great place to put that energy sort of thing. Um, and I think that the main thing was it's that idea of you when you're alone and running, you just things come up that you wouldn't have time to think about otherwise. And it's sort of and they'll come up later, but it won't sort of blindside you. You're in a good place to think about it when you're out running.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. I'm well into my long distance running, and for me, and for most people I know who run, it's usually because of the mental aspect of it. Like I think when things are really tough, and particularly if you're going through an especially acute hard time in your life, there's that temptation to kind of busy yourself and become
Yeah.
distracted by the world. You might like engross yourself in work and work really hard, or you might just be out partying the whole time to kind of constantly distract your mind from the pain that's
Yeah.
existing within you. From what I've heard, running is obviously that kind of aspect for a lot of people where they give space to their mind and they can really breathe. Is that kind of what you're experiencing yourself?
Definitely, definitely. I think that's a great way of putting it, to be fair, because I think in a lot of ways, I sort of did make myself very busy afterwards, and so I kept and tried to just keep things moving. But again, as I say, that time that running, even though you're busy in some ways because you're out exercising, whatever, but that time in your head is sort of quiet. There's nothing really distracting you. Um, and yeah, definitely, as you say, just gives you that space to think.
Yeah, yeah, I've certainly had it before myself where I've gone through tough points in my life, and it's been like a run that I wouldn't say solves, but just kind of like changes my perspective, kind of like widens the lens out and makes
Yeah,
me realize that actually, you can kind of get these endorphins going, you can feel a lot better about yourself. And one thing that I thought was remarkable about your particular story is that you seem to have this brilliant and rare balance between alpha achievements of doing just incredible things with your running and then partnering that with emotional vulnerability. They're kind of one and the same thing in what you do. Do you feel like there's a benefit of having movement and mission over sitting and talking?
definitely. I think as well. I think one of the things that I sort of dad was a massive sort of teacher for me. Um, as basically he was very good at creating community and bringing people together. Um, and I think that was one thing that a massive lesson of that I learned from him was to be trying that and doing that and being around people and connecting and all that sort of stuff. So I think the sort of mission as well was helped provide that as well because I wanted to get as many people involved as possible. So many of his sort of friends and family got involved and sort of supporting that. Um, so as I think that was such a massive part of it as well.
Okay. Yeah. So for you, I guess going into it, you were able to bring everyone along with you because you chose to go public with it. And I think suffering, it's inherently subjective. We kind of only know how it feels for ourselves. But in a time where you were suffering mentally, you chose to suffer physically. And in a time where most people become very insular and within their own world, you decided to go public. So why
Yeah,
do you think that you chose to do that?
I think a lot of ways was again sort of coming back to that sort of thing of dad being sort of very good within the community. He had a lot of sort of good friends and stuff like that, and was sort of very popular within the sort of the small town that we lived. So for so quite a lot of people were sort of grieving dad and missing him and whatnot. I think being able to sort of then go and sort of do something that sort of reminded that kept him in sort of our lives and stuff like that. And I'll be able to bring people with me. And yeah, I think that was a big thing of being able to share it and get it out there. And because I think that's at the end of the day, it was one of his big things was being positive and sort of, yeah, sort of getting the best out of any situation. And so I think that was such a big thing. And then I think as well with the putting it out there sort of thing was obviously we were raising money for an amazing charity called the Brain Charity. And obviously when it's sort of out there, the more chance you have of raising more money.
Yeah. Okay. So there's that appeal to needing to get the word out there. I think especially as well, running has just blown up. Like it's already this really popular hobby where in the last 5 years we've seen so many beginners. I think because it's at
Yeah.
its early stage in its infancy, we've got so many people now starting to run. Am I right in thinking before doing the challenge, you had only run a half marathon before?
That was the max run. Yeah, yeah.
Mate, that's crazy. Whoa.
Yeah, I mean, I f but again, so it was the sort of the running sort of the football thing, I just never really had time to run any further, but I knew I always wanted to do a marathon. Um, but yeah, I just sort of I don't know. It's a good point, really. I'd never I know I just sort of had a bit of belief that I would be able to. So why not go bigger?
Yeah, that's a very unique mindset to to really back yourself because I feel like at the moment running is such a big hobby and it's quite an elite hobby. Like everyone who does it, at least like people I see online and around me, they're like they've got all the gels, they've got Strava, they're obsessed with timings. It becomes this like very elitist hobby when these people aren't even pro or they don't want to be pro, but they're kind of
Yeah.
metrics focused the whole time. Whereas following you and your runs and watching updates on social media whilst you're doing your runs, you really just seem to enjoy it. How do you kind of keep that enjoyment over kind of the maybe the pressure to achieve the goal?
I think, because I'm so glad you brought it up because I think all that, I mean, it's great if that's what will get you into running and stuff like that, the having all the gear and gels and whatnot. If that's what will make you confident and make you believe that you can go and get these times and that's what you love doing, then great. But I think it's so like overcomplicated. Like running such a simple sport, like everyone does it. Just a bit, it's just a bit faster than walking. Um, I think that the idea of doing all that sort of thing in terms of having the perfect gear and having all the gels and all the perfect nutrition plan or whatever, almost that if that was me, I don't think I want to do it. Um, part of the part of the enjoyment is being able to run as far as you can one day, whatever that distance may be, and then being able to have like a beer on the evening as like a little reward. Like you can look forward to that in the evening, and you've actually earned it. It's not. It wasn't particularly about it. Sort of making as long as I knew that I'd be able to go and do the same thing again tomorrow. As long as I felt confident, like I'd just sort of just relax. If like in Portugal, I end up wearing shirts because I ran out of washing, and it's that's not the main thing. Like the main thing's running. It doesn't really matter what you're wearing or you're wearing. It's just whatever. So I think, yeah, I think it's interesting the ways sort of it's gone. And I sort of want to be a bit of the opposite side to that because I don't believe it is something that you need to have. And I think maybe quite a few people are being put off running because they don't have everything in place. Where just get a decent pair of running shoes and wear them. Yeah, go out in your jeans if that's what you've got and that's what you feel comfortable in.
I was speaking to a friend of mine the other day, and he's running a half marathon that's coming up, the Brighton half, and he was telling me that he was really getting in his own head because he was nervous about not making the time that he wanted to make in the cut. And he's kind of just got into running in the last few years. He's not looking to go pro or anything like that. And I remember just thinking, why would you do that to yourself? Why not just soak up the atmosphere, really enjoy it and kind of absorb the atmosphere. But what's your opinion on these kind of elitist view to running? Because it seems to be the predominant view on running at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely understand it, especially with racing, um, because like I've been signed up. I've signed up to a few races early this year to see what sort of times I can get, and I think you're definitely sort of more prone to fall into that sort of thing when it's a race and you're aiming for a time because all your training is revolving around the speed and the time that you want. So if you don't end up getting it, it's like, oh, it's a bit deflating. But then you've sort of just got to take a step back and actually you're running. I think running comes down to much less than that. I think, as I say, like we've chatted about already, the mental side of things, the being able to just sort of stay in a bit of routine around work and training and getting out still. And then, as you say, on the day itself, it's such an amazing experience. Just go out and just run as fast as you can, which you'll be able to run faster because you've trained. But if it doesn't happen, like a lot of things can happen on a race day. It is what it is. You can just enjoy it for the day it is, and sort of see what time you come out with. And again, I think like in especially on sort of big halves and marathons these days, you see a lot of people getting towards the end, and like people sort of falling down because they're just absolutely peppered. I think there's running's about picking that person up and helping them along rather than focusing on your time. I think there's so much more to it than just your time and you'll get your personal goals. I think the main thing is the community. Like as you say, so many people getting involved in it now, which means there's a much bigger community. And I think that's the main thing that it needs to be focused on is keeping people together and bringing people together.
You seem to have this really great perspective on like seeing the wider picture of what it is you're doing. Like even your Premier League tour where you're doing your running, even that wasn't really about the running. It was about bringing people together, a memory of Dave at the time. And what I think a lot of people have at the moment is they shy away from challenges. So for those who are listening who maybe have a challenge in their mind or they just feel like they kind of don't have the confidence to go and do something they really want to do, how is it that you find the enjoyment in the hard things?
I think so for me, one of the big things is sort of the adventure. So these challenges were great. They were a great adventure in terms of seeing so many new places and running through so many like places that I wouldn't visit otherwise. Along the way, you meet so many people, which was a massive part of it as well. Just hearing all these different lives and perspectives was amazing. But and then I think the smaller, as even when it comes down to like races and trying to achieve a time or whatever that you don't think you might be able to get. Um, Even just that sort of challenge is, I think, just being able to just get into a routine and um, almost believing that you can sort of prepare and train as well as you can for a certain event, regardless of whether you come out with the sort of goal time or whatever. Um, I think it's all so much comes from that sort of the discipline in the training. Um, it gives you so much. That in itself gives me anyway a lot of belief.
And a lot of your training, I think it seemed quite intense from what I was reading, because I feel a lot of people, if you ask them why they chose not to do a certain challenge, they'll probably say, I'm too busy. But you were working as a chef at the time. So what was your training schedule looking like in the build up to that accomplishment?
Um, so it got pretty hectic to be fair in the end. So I was over. It was maybe the last sort of 6 months that my training sort of stepped up a notch. I did end up getting a coach just because I didn't have a clue what I'd do in terms of the training. Um, so I ended up going with a company called Optimal Endurance, which have been great and they've been so supportive. Um, but but essentially, that took basically my mind off training. All I had to do was do what they said, and I knew I'd be all right. But so my work week would usually be 4 12-hour shifts a week. Um, and so I'm terrible. I'm a terrible morning person. So I'd usually start work at 10, but I'd leave the house late as I could. I go and do my sort of usually a 10 till 10 shift. And then when I get home at what, 10, half 10 or whatever it might be. And then I tend to have a little chill for a little bit, have a bowl of cereal, whatever. And then I'd leave the house again for my run at about 12 o'clock at night. Go and do hour and a half. If it was usually my longer sessions were on my days off. So I'd usually do sort of stronger interval sessions after work, which would take usually an hour and 10 minutes. So that was fine. Get in, go to bed, and into the next day, sort of thing. And on my days off, especially within the last sort of the nearer the time, the last couple months, it sort of became a thing of I'd usually do either a long run, which was usually like 3 hours or whatever, at a steady pace, or I'd do a double session where I'd do a sort of interval session, which might take an sort of hour, as I say, hour and 20 minutes, um, at different intensities, and then do a slower, steadier run in the evening, which might be sort of 30 minutes to an hour. Um, and so that's sort of how I worked around it. And genuinely, actually, that busyness again, back to that sort of, I really enjoyed it. I think it gave me so much confidence and belief. Again, it was something, and thinking back prior to any of this, like the setting the challenge, I would never even think about going 2 runs in a day. It's like, what on earth would you do that for? But I think again, you get so much confidence and belief just knowing that that's looking back from where you've been. Now that's the point of where you're at training wise was just a big boost.
And you got a coach, Jack. How did he
Jack,
help you?
I think, as I say, like all of this was very new to me, and especially like the professionalism side, and like I didn't, and I'm still terrible with that. So, and that's sort of how I like it. Um, but he just provided so much structure, and just as I say, I didn't know what to have in my head before when I set the challenge. I thought, well, I'll just sort of keep running and gradually increase the distance until I'm doing what I'll be doing in April, sort of thing, which was sort of 50, 60 kilometers a day. And obviously, when you're working full time, you just can't, you can't go out and run 5 6 hours. So that was just, I don't know what I was thinking. So I thought, got to about September time in the year prior. So I'd say sort of 6 8 months before, and I thought, right, could do with someone with a bit more know-how. And so that's when got Jack on board and thought, and he just provided the sort of know how he's performed at an elite level, um, within sort of the space. I knew, as I say, he just put out the training sessions, told me what I had to do, and as I say, if I knew it, if I did that, followed that to a T, I'd be fine. So I think it just peace of mind as much as anything. It just provided, as well as obviously the physical side of actually preparing me.
And you've spoken a lot about the journey of the actual challenge being so much more than just the physical goal. And you got pitched up by strangers and all this kindness that you experienced, and stories of your dad and things like that. What was the overall experience for you, and how did that journey, I guess, help you go through the process that you were going through?
I think the journey is like that's what I that's what like I loved the everyday sort of the day to day life. Absolutely loved it. I think is when I'm out on these challenges, it sort of strips everything down to sort of a bare minimum. You wake up, you run, you come back, you spend time with whoever you're with, your friends or family, and have a few beers, have a laugh, go to sleep, and you're up again the next day. I think it ticks sort of all the boxes in terms of what you sort of what someone needs in terms of exercise, social sort of activity, um, and sort of just be. I think that balance was great, and I absolutely loved it. And as you say about the sort of the journey as well, in terms of the whole sort of thing, I think that back to that sort of adventure in terms of not really knowing what could happen on that day. Um, was sort of exciting. And I absolutely love that. Like 1 minute, 1 hour, you're fine, you're absolutely buzzing, everything's fantastic. The next, you might be picked up by like a police car or whatever because you're running on the wrong road, or like you're crashing out because you're absolutely peppered for sort of out of the blue. And I think that excited me much more than sort of worried me. I just sort of again sort of I could I sort of go about things in terms of just knowing, just believing that everything will sort of be fine. So, and if it's not, just figure it out then. And so the excitement was the main thing in terms of just not knowing how the day will go.
And you spoke about this one story of you'd just completed the challenge, 25 days, 20 Premier League stadiums, and then you got pitched out that night and you decided to have a few drinks and head to the London Marathon the next day. What was the story there?
Oh, Jake, God, this I did. It was a funny one. I mean, so as you said, I just finished at the Emirates where we that was the final stadium of sort of the Premier League tour, and so as there was maybe like 50 people there, sort of there to sort of cheer me in and whatnot. Afterwards, we found a place to like a pub, and we all went back to this pub. So at the end, I was thinking, well, I'm gonna have a great night tonight. So straight away, I arrive at this pub. People are like buying drinks and stuff like that, and that's a rarity in itself. So I thought, right, I'm gonna make the most of this. We're in London, and people are buying me drinks. I thought, right, that's that. So yeah, start drinking, obviously chatting with everyone and having a great night. I thought, there's no chance I'm sort of calling this early. I'm just gonna enjoy tonight for what it is, and then tomorrow it's a later problem. So yeah, as I said, I had a great night there. Maybe I had probably like 10 pints. I'm not, I'm not sure. Um, but yeah, went back to, I was staying at my godfather's that night, who's got a space in the centre of London. So that was a bonus. So went back there, had some Chinese, and went to bed. Next morning, 6:30, he's, he's getting me up. I'm thinking, oh, what have I done here? Why have I done this to myself? Straight away, I sort of sit up and think, head spin. I'm thinking, I'm still pissed here. I'm not. If I remember thinking, if I do this today, if I manage to complete the London Marathon today, I think that'll be a big achievement. Then the whole this month. I went to the toilet straight away, threw up. I thought, oh God, we're in trouble. We are in trouble. So went back, sort of went back. He's saying, man, we got to go, Arch. I've got to drop you off the station. My mum gave him strict instructions of making sure I got to the start line on time. Went to the station on the train. And if you've ever been in the London Marathon, I didn't quite expect it, but it's like the trains are absolutely rammed. And I'm just like the sweats are coming out on this point. I'm just stood like touch tight with people. I'm thinking I'm gonna throw up here. I'm like bad way. And before I got on the train, actually, I got to this platform, and all the runners again, all up for it. Went to stand on the platform. I was like, right, no, I've got to go opposite direction to the platform here. I threw up on the platform. I looked across the platform. There was two like stewards just staring at me and just went. It's like got on the train, got to the start line. Start line sort of made my way to wherever I sort of roughly needed to be. I thought, right, I'm quite early. Got my bag behind my back. Had like an hour's kip. Go up, threw up again. And at this point, I was feeling a little bit better. And I thought, right, I can go and drop my back off now, and that'll be great. I'll be ready to start. I'll try and find some food because I hadn't eaten anything. I'll try and find some food, just see if there's a stall or something. Anyway, went to look at the bag drop. Turns out months ago, I'd signed up for some green initiative thing, which I thought at the time seemed like a great idea, but I'd forgot. And it turns out you can't, that means no bag drop. So now I've got all my stuff from the night before in my rucksack that I've just figured out I'm gonna have to run now with this. So, so I was again. I just sort of went, well, here's what it is. Go, we'll go with it. So yeah, I think I had a cup of tea. That's all I could find. I did have like a gel, I think, in my bag that was just in there. So I had that then, and then yeah, I mean, it was a lovely day. So by the time the start came around, the hangover was just about passing. The worst of it had gone anyway. But again, I was like, right. I've just called my brother saying, I'm on home, basically saying, all right, if you can just meet us somewhere, I'll drop my bag with you because I've messed up this bag drop. And they were like, right, great, just great stuff. And I was like, oh, so if you've got any food, could you just bring some? That'd be great. So yeah, start running, bag on my back. Actually, really enjoying it. I just like the whole vibe of London Marathon just will get you through anything. I feel like. I started running anyway. About 5k in, the zip on my bag breaks. It's rammed full, and like things are falling out the back. I've got people saying, "Mate, your stuff's falling out." I'm like, God, sorry. So then I stop for a minute, shove all my stuff in my bag. I take my shirt off, put my bag on my front, t-shirt back over the bag, and so nothing's falling out. And then I just continue running with my sort of hands on my rucksack and just sort of ambling along. And eventually, about I think it was maybe 10 miles in, I came across my brother and my sister-in-law, and they took my bag from me, and that was just I felt like a new human being after leaving my bag behind. And then yeah, just went on, continued running. It was a great day. I absolutely loved it.
Wow.
But yeah, definitely a few complications in the morning.
And for people that have no idea, which is most people, what actually happens to your body and the physical deterioration after running all those days and getting to the end? Like what mileage were you doing per day? What was the physical toll by the end of it?
I think so. The mileage per day was sort of in kilometers about 50 to 60 kilometers a day. Um, and then, so I think in miles, that's about 30 to 35, something like that. So after, so I did sort of 25 days of that London Marathon. And after that, I've just sort of just relaxed for a good, maybe I think I did nothing for a week. And then it was sort of just, after that, it was just sort of easing, just ticking basically. Um, But yeah, I mean, pretty sore. But again, I think you after that sort of amount of time, your body sort of starts getting to a routine. You sort of by a week or so in, you sort of you. I feel like you adjust a little bit. Um, you sort of find yourself waking up not loose, but sort of much. You sort of you what's the word? You're sort of expecting it and you're sort of used to it and you know that you can just go and sort of do another day. So it became a bit of a strange one. Like I think afterwards was you sort of I found I recovered much faster than I was originally expecting. Um, because I think of how much the body adapts to what you're doing. And just the fact that I didn't have to run was a bit of a think of right, I can actually just I can chill and just yeah, recover.
I'm really interested in what makes you able to achieve what you've done because throughout this whole conversation, I'd be thinking like you weren't a runner, you didn't have any following, you didn't have any backing, and yet you got all this media coverage, you had sponsors, you had great support. There was so much more beyond the physical achievement, and even just getting yourself in the right shape for it is incredible in itself. So, what is it you think about you that made you able to build this thing together, and raise what was £20,000 for charity? You did something not just at the physical level, but you really created a movement and brought community in. Why do you think you were able to do that?
Again, I think it's because so many people, especially with the like that, the Premier League run, so many people were just so supportive of it. Like so many friends and family helped make it happen. So, like whether it be contacting different media outlets or just different people's links. As I say, Dad was such a popular bloke as well, so he had so many friends that sort of wanted to help and sort of get the word out there. So I think so much was just down to uh, spreading the word and letting talking to people about it and letting people help, and not be too I think not being too sort of precious about everything being done the way you want to do it, and just sort of control what, like for me, it was just literally the running part of it was all I really need to worry about in terms, and maybe just and getting people in place so that I had support for each day. But I think the whole other thing was just a bit more of a thing of like being appreciative and having people join and help with it all. Um, I think that was such a key part to it. And in terms of the media, again, whether it was some often like other people that I'd have a contact and they'd say, "Oh, I'll be able to contact that person or give you that contact if you like." And also, I think just from my footballing past, I knew a few people within the media, so that helps a lot. But I think it's just largely about just sort of sticking to your strengths. So my sort of and using the cards you dealt, so to speak. And, and a massive card was the people that I knew and who they knew, sort of the network that was allowed it to be sort of as big as it could be, really.
I feel like when a lot of people have big ideas, they they typically get a level of cynicism, which I believe is partly to do with English culture, that we
Yeah.
are generally a bit more cynical to big ideas that seem sort of out of reality in some way. Whereas like cultures like America, I've heard that like things like entrepreneurship and things like that are like far much more encouraged because someone's got a big idea and there's just a general positivity to it. So there is that aspect of naysayers who maybe think that your dream is too big or too crazy. What is it you think that those people have or lack that would be different to you?
Um, I think purpose is, I think, a big thing. But I've like, I didn't particularly encounter much of that. I must say, the people around, like anyone that I spoke to about it, was so positive about it, and they were a bit like, I mean, how are you going to do this? Because it's such a sort of, especially before sort of training or whatever. It was like I didn't really know. It's like, don't know really. Hopefully. Um, but I think it was that purpose behind it in terms of um being in memory of my dad and stuff like that. That a sort of if that was ever really a thing in terms of that cynicism and that sort of negative side, especially of social media, was ever really a thing. I think I knew I was doing it for something that meant the world to me, and I think was the fact that I do it all actually as myself and not try and come across as something just like unauthentic and not me. And I think that was probably a massive part as well. Um, but I think a massive part of that cynicism is social media, and obviously, as soon as it goes, I never really blew up on social media, so it was I never really got any of that negativity through that because everyone that was following me sort of knew my story and things like that and sort of was so supported. Um, but I think in terms of anyone that would wanting to do a challenge and that was sort of a worry of theirs, I think as long as you yourself throughout and you've got that purpose, I don't see a reason why it would particularly like have a longer lasting effect on you because you're being true.
How do you think your perspective has changed now you have prepared, actually completed, and achieved this incredible thing that took so much time and effort to do? But you went out there and you did it and you raised all the money and you did this incredible thing in the world that touched so many people's hearts. How has that changed your perspective on your life looking forward?
I think it's sort of added a big like sense of belief in myself. Um, in terms of like maybe a little bit like delusional in terms of what I'd like. I think it's sort of inspires far more plans that I now believe could be done. That I could do, which I just never would have even considered before. Um, I think that's like one of the key things, and I think that thing of sort of that the slow increments of improvement is like I knew that was a big thing before, but I think it's really emphasized now in terms of like day to day. You might not feel like you're getting much done, but doing just one thing that has to be done, a small thing, even if it's literally just dropping that message to someone that could again progress things further. I think that's such a massive thing. So like at this point, I'm in a bit of downtime where I'm sort of again doing some shorter distances. Not really got a big challenge sort of in the near future. And it's like, man, what can I do? You sort of lose a bit of that routine and lose a bit of that sort of goal. And I think in my head, it's still, man, what can I still do today that might actually sort of help prepare for that next thing? Um, so I think that's the main thing. Then that sort of belief and that emphasis on small, minor like tasks.
You've definitely got this perspective, which I really admire. You've just got this like incredible strength of positivity, and being able to be optimistic about yourself and the world. For those people who are listening who are going through a tough time at the moment, maybe they're grieving themselves, in those moments that are difficult for you, how is it? Because I'm thinking I'm a young man as well, like you, and I'm lucky that I've still got my parents, and I have no idea what life would be like without one of them there. How is it that you're able to kind of be there for yourself in those moments?
I think so. It's in this sort of specific scenario in terms of grief. I think the idea of finding a way to keep them in your life is such a massive part. Um, Obviously, the original thing of like the original stages of grief are so difficult, and just getting over to the fact that this person is no longer here is so difficult, and that's why I think setting a challenge and or just getting out and exercising and being around your friends and family is so important because that helps you through them really tough times. And as time goes on, I think it is about finding ways to that keep them in your life and keep that spark and yeah, and I get a lot of sort of peace and s- yeah, just almost like joy from knowing that my dad's still there and still with me. And especially on the challenges, and when I'm running, I almost feel it like I feel like he's with me even more because that's sort of why I do it. So I think in terms of grief, especially like in terms of a grief scenario, that's the main massive thing. Um, but then I think when you're feeling down, it's just about knowing that that will pass, and finding ways to help sort of try and move it on faster. Like finding a little hobby that can sort of shift your perspective on how you're feeling, or shift your feeling.
Yeah, it's an incredible achievement beyond all of the running. It's just how you're able to go through that at a young age, and to do it in a way that is so public, so community focused, and able to inspire people and literally bring them on that journey with you. Archie, where I wanted to finish off is to talk about the Brain Charity. What do they do, and are there any events that people can look out for in what you're up to coming up in the future?
Um, so yeah, I mean, Brain Charity, absolutely amazing. Unfortunately, we weren't aware of them before Dad passed. Um, but one thing that we always felt very lucky to have had, and well, fortunate to have had, when Dad was ill, was again this massive support network that of sort of Dad's friends, our friends, family friends, so so many people that just other other people with neurological conditions don't don't have. They might have one or two, and even that's amazing. But so many that just don't have anyone. So after Dad passed, it was a case of finding a charity that really provide that for people in terms of a community, people to lean on and help you through sort of a tough time. And that's something that the Brain Charity provides for people. And since sort of working for the last y- sort of year and a half, I've like every time I go in there, I just come away absolutely brimming the fact that I absolutely love being a part of that community. The people that you meet there are fantastic. They fill you with such like again, even like such positivity. Um, and yeah, I mean, as I say, they help people affected by any neurological condition. So there's over 600, so they're learning every day about these about new ones. Um, and so, but again, that brings in attracts such like a variety of people, all sharing sort of that's that one sort of mutual thing, which again is just so powerful. And as I say, I feel very fortunate to be a part of it.
And what's, if anything, is anything coming up next? Is there anything that people can look out for? And if so, where can people find you?
So next thing, as I say, at the moment, I'm doing a bit more racing. Is the London Marathon. So I've got that in the end of April. I will be running that for the Brain Charity, um, and hopefully raising a little bit more money. But yeah, that is my next challenge. But then hopefully after that, I'll be stepping back into the longer distance, sort of more personal challenges. Um, and you can find me on, I think the main, but probably best place is on Instagram, at Stadium Stomper. Um, and yeah, I mean, we'll sort of see what the summer has to hold, but hopefully a few more sort of big challenges then.
I've just realised this isn't a one-off for you, is it? It seems like, is this just a continuation? Do you see yourself always doing these big running events and continuously raising money? What is the bigger picture for you?
I think definitely. So I mean, after the Premier League one, I ended up doing the Scotland League, the Portuguese League, and now I'd love to continue that football stadium theme. Just because absolutely, obviously, I'm a big football fan. Love the sort of the traveling aspect of in terms of seeing a new country. I tend to go out with like a mate or whatever who's supporting. Um, so I mean, yeah, I think mixing the football sort of stadium theme, I think almost doing that as almost a bit more of a training thing, or like a just for fun as much as anything, and then having a bit more renowned running routes maybe around that. But definitely intend to continue this for as long as I can.
Cool. Looking forward to it. Archie, thanks so much for coming on, and thank you for teaching me about far more than just running and training, but so much was about just strength of character and the things that you've had to experience in your life to have to become the man that you are today. And
No, well, thank you very much, Jake. Thank you.
thanks a lot. Cheers, Archie.
Top man. See you later.
Cheers, mate.